Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the 6th episode of the Capoeira Connection Podcast. Today, we have the chance of sitting down with Contra Mestre Marrio of Capoeira Kalunga N'Golo of Houston, Texas, and fellow Angoleiro Jaime Torres. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy. And let's start off, where are you both residing, first of all?
Oh, I reside in Houston.
Reside in Houston?
Yeah.
And I'm from a quaint town known as Kyle, just south of Austin, full of waterfalls and rainbows and all that.
Unicorns, all that stuff.
Exactly. You've seen them too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And it's interesting. So you guys are the first kind of Angoleiro guests that we've had on the podcast. And we've had requests, hey guys, I want to dip into this culture and that culture. So this is really cool for me as well. And I have several questions also kind of just in general for you guys. But we went in our very first podcast and we talked about the history of capoeira in Austin, I guess kind of from the regional or capoeira contemporânea kind of scene. And I'm interested to even know back then in the early 90s, what that was like for the Capoeira Angola community. And we can kind of kick it off from there, you know? Okay. I guess doesn't have to be in Austin, but I just mean in the U.S. kind of in general. So just hear a little bit about y'all's background of even finding capoeira and Capoeira Angola or regional or how you came to practice, what you're doing right now.
Well, first I have to say I am definitely thankful for Shape Community Center.
Okay.
Shape Community Center in Houston is definitely responsible for Capoeira, Angola in particular, with our group, for even being in Houston. Our academy has been out of that facility since 1999. Prior to that, we did so many other people, we'd find a little spot here, we train there. We train at the University of Houston in the hallway, put the boom box, plug it up, and just train and try to do what we learned from a workshop or from, in my case, my Mestre Jaime Bay is in Atlanta, and that's how I came into capoeira. But initially, how I got into capoeira was one of my camaradas, my good brother, Asakwe, he bought those Panther production videos.
I have a couple in my closet. The yellow and black ones.
Amin Santos and, Reyes, right?
Yeah.
And Mestres,
Yeah, that's going back, Mestre Amin, right?
Yeah, and we saw those, we worked out on those videos, and then there was something in the during the interview section at the end. They were talking about this Ongala and stuff like that. And I was like, man, what is that? They had Brazil Week at the University of Houston, and they were showing Quilombos. They showed a couple of other Brazilian movies, and there was food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'd read some things on these African martial art, and that's how I came into capoeira that way. So that when I moved to Atlanta to go to school, I saw a gentleman on the train, this brother Jamie, and he was a dancer actually, touring. And but he had a capoeira tattoo on his arm, and I was like, "Oh man, you do the capoeira," and I took that plunge, and that's how I dove into the pool.
That's really interesting. I guess the way, so when you guys started, training capoeira, it's kind of, it's a little different than I did, I guess, as far as I found a mastery and I started training under that mastery. It's almost like a kind of a collective, and that's very much the way that Contra Mestre Gringo and from Capoeira Luanda started.
Oh yeah,
as well, right?
Oh yeah. We I had a mastery.
Okay.
But my camaradas, were in Houston.
Yeah.
And so they were, in my absence,
Gotcha.
they were coming to Austin.
Okay.
Because the FICA group was here in Austin.
Yeah. And who was running the?
To
FICA
my
group?
knowledge, it was Scott.
Okay.
I don't remember his last name.
Okay.
This guy Scott, and I know that when he left, I believe it was John White.
Yeah, John White
that took over the group.
Okay.
And then I think there was another group, Kabula, under Mr. Carlão, Mongu, and some other people from that group, from that same Fika group. They kind of splintered a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
From what I remember. And they made that relationship with Mestre Carlão, and Mestre Carlão came, and so the group of people in Houston, we would come to Austin to do capoeira, to be with the Mestre, or we would go to Atlanta. They would come to Atlanta, and train, and then come back to Houston, and so, but they just kept that going. And then when I moved back to Houston, it was like, hey man, let's get a place, let's find somewhere, and this community center, Shape Community Center, was a powerhouse in the Third Ward community, and a Black community, period, in Houston. And the director saw it, understood what it was, and also too, Osakwe and Amameru, two members of the group, they had done the caravan to the ancestors, where they would go from, not the caravan, caravan to the ancestors. They would go through the South and retrace the Freedom Tour, is what they call it, and retrace the civil rights movement.
Oh, wow.
From state to state. Take a group of busload of children. And so they chaperoned for that.
I didn't even realize there was like a tour you go to.
Yeah, well, well, it's not necessarily a tour, but
okay.
I'm sure probably many different people do it.
Yeah, just
but
historically.
For sure, yeah, Shape Community Center, that's what they do every summer, is they take a group of children and they take them through all the different states, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and back. So they get to go over the Pettus Bridge and all that kind of stuff.
Wow!
And so they did that. Like this community center is like whatever. It has sprungboard so many other. It's the springboard for so many other organizations in Houston that are civilly active.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like a perfect fit for us.
Yeah.
And we've been there ever since. So I'm eternally grateful to this organization, because it would have been that much more difficult with us to be able to do capoeira, being with, like I said, it was a group of us. We got together. We didn't really have any money. We're all college students and stuff. And, so trying to have, rent on a place and all that. Like, I can't even imagine like what that whole process would have been. So like even with Contra Mestre Gringo, we would go because he was doing capoeira, and he would come because we were doing capoeira, and
When did you guys kind of decide to make the distinction or follow the traditions of Capoeira Angola versus like Capoeira Regional? I guess for yourself personally?
Myself personally, it was being in Atlanta, because there was a Capoeira Angola Academy there. So when I walked into a Capoeira Angola Academy, whereas
who was that run by?
Mestre Jaime Bay.
Okay.
Yeah, he's out of the Atlanta area.
Okay.
And so I didn't have to do anything. I strolled right in.
Yeah.
At the time he wasn't a Mestre. And so I saw the whole set. I was able to see the whole setup and live the culture that way. And so.
So it's kind of like that just happened to what you walked into.
Yeah, is what I walked into. But as far as my brothers in Houston, I think at some point, well, I guess that would be me finding Capoeira Angola.
Okay. And
then them saying, oh yeah, and then reaching out and finding out there's a group in Austin, they're doing Capoeira Angola. I think that was more along where the distinction or specialization came in.
Yeah, for sure.
We, like I said, we did have those videos, but I was doing Tai Chi at the time. So like I saw the videos, I thought they were cool, and I did some of the push-ups and stuff like that, strengthening, conditioning. But as far as like as a martial art, I was looking at it from a lens of an Asian martial art. So I didn't like the whole concept of putting your head on the ground.
Yeah.
Doing
handstand.
Doing some kind of aerial off of a floreo off of a school bus to kick somebody. I don't know if you saw that. Remember that? It's like, I don't know when that's gonna happen, but if it does,
they would set
I'll
up
be ready.
The practical reality.
Right. If someone chases me up a school bus, I know what to do.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, that's true. That's yeah. And what kind of background can you tell us a little bit about Mestre Jaime Bay?
Oh yeah,
Jaime Bay.
Yeah, he was coming from L.A.
Okay.
Training capoeira in L.A. And as a matter of fact, with Mestre Accordion, they were all doing Haitian now.
Okay.
And somewhere in that, with people coming to the United States, they ran into Capoeira Angola. They went to Bahia and ran into Mestre Moraes. And from there, built a relationship with Mestre Moraes. And so there was already this kind of movement, guys moving towards, finding out there's so much more to capoeira.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, so his first several years were with capoeira there.
Okay.
And I don't know who it was that he actually took with in L.A., but I know he was a student of Mestre Accordion and,
yeah,
back in those days, because he was probably like one of the first here too, on the West Coast doing it. And then we were under FICA. My first year of capoeira was.
And what does FICA stand for?
You know what?
I think it's like
in English,
Federation of International Capoeira Association.
Capoeira Association. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know whether to try to do it in English
or
Portuguese.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. But it's funny because I feel like for a lot of us that started capoeira back in the early 90s, we all had a similar approach where it's like we didn't really like choose where we went. It's like whatever was available. And we started there. And it, like you said, with the community centers, like a springboard. Mm-hmm. Maybe you didn't stay there, but it was like that was the first taste before, somebody else, has a school that pops up that you can actually like choose to go to.
Right.
And it's funny because it's like that's a different look at like, I guess like the American generation starting capoeira versus like in for Brazilians in Brazil. You can find capoeira wherever you want per se, not out of like necessity. Does that make sense? Like you have more of a choice, I guess.
And it was work.
Yeah.
It was work. I mean, like we look at it now and we think, man, like these guys, people don't have to really learn songs anymore. Like I feel like attention span is like out of there, man.
They're like, I'm not gonna pay attention in class. I'm gonna go YouTube it later. I don't care about it now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna YouTube it. I mean, like I remember somebody going to a workshop and coming back with a songbook. That was like a holy grail. It was like, dude, don't touch that with your bare hands. Yeah. What are you doing? And so it's a new day, man.
Yeah.
As far as all that kind of stuff goes, and so like getting everything down, it made us so much more attentive when we were able to be in the presence of a mestre. And then also too, like I said, I think we were talking earlier, we put those restraints and controls on ourselves. Like, no, this is how it goes. Like, this is how the academies run.
Yeah.
And so we had a beautiful foundation, to facilitate that within and of ourselves.
Yeah.
And, the nature of capoeira, it's community, and it's an African principle of community government.
Right.
And so, hence the circle. There are no pews and rows and stuff. And so, when you're in that circle, everybody's eyes can see everyone. And it's a beautiful way to self-govern, when your community holds you accountable.
Yeah.
And that's what we did, and so like, I feel like that was the advantage of not having a mestre directly in our academy on the day-to-day, was that we got that lesson of life, and that guidance, that structure of, I hold you responsible, you hold me responsible. And the community center where we are, that's the circle of interdependence. I am because you are, the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because you are because I am. And we grow and we progress that way.
Yeah. And let me know, Jaime, how did you guys kind of like link up in your friendship, like along the way? You guys meet, I'm assuming, in Texas?
I met Jaime at a truck stop.
Okay. Interesting.
Texas truck stop. I was driving the truck and he was walking around the truck stop.
Okay.
No, but I moved to Austin, where I met my wife,
Okay.
and he started to train Capoeira Angola with Free Angola, right? That's how we met. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Free Angola Capoeira Society in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, another thing I'm kind of interested in also just for like everyone listening too is like, let's talk a little bit about, I guess just like in the Capoeira Angola culture, like what it means to like progress, I guess, in terms of levels, right? Like, now we have like our cordas and it's like a very, cut and dry thing. Can you talk a little bit about like just what it's like in the process from becoming like, a student all the way up to kind of Contra mastery and how that works?
Oh, well,
just in
typically,
general.
in general, it's like you're an alumno, then you're a Contra Mestre.
Yeah.
Now, like I start to see more like you see like a professor or a
Trenels,
trenel. You see that, but I that wasn't my experience.
Yeah.
Growing up in Capoeira, like trenel is probably something that I started to see maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe, starting out.
So newer type of
thing to kind of get, because there's so many people that, like your master may not be in the same city with you.
Yeah.
You go to college or somewhere and you train Capoeira, and then what are you going to do when you go back home or you move, you get a job to some city and there's no Capoeira.
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh, well, okay. And so you go to your mestre and they say, okay. And then you train, and you may not even be considered you are technically in that role, but you may not have a title, as that,
Right,
and I think that's something that's,
they don't necessarily say, hey, you're a professor. And then what's the difference between now I'm an instructor?
Right.
Like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
By age experience.
And stuff like that. Yeah. There's that. To my knowledge, there may be some academies that function that way.
Yeah.
But ours wasn't. It was just, you're a mestre, a contra mestre.
Yeah.
Other than that, in Angola, I think that's probably one of the larger differences as well. Whereas you'll see people, 20 something plus years and really, really active in their academia. And
Right.
They're alumno.
Yeah.
And for a Capoeira Angola, like that's something it's not given out easy or lightly.
Right.
The titles. So
when on our drive over here, you made a comment that I assimilate with as well as was when you got the title of Contra Mastery or like your graduation, it wasn't something that you were necessarily like looking for, or you started Capoeira for that.
I didn't even think it was possible.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, no way. Like it was, a complete shock.
Yeah.
And for me, like I was telling you, like it took away everything that I thought was cool about how I perceive myself. I wanted to be great at Capoeira.
There's no more informalities, right?
There's no more informalities,
Yeah.
I would prefer to be that guy. Like I said, I got my little grocery bag. I got some baguettes and some food hanging out. I see a roda. Oh, let's go play. I play nice, and people wonder, oh, okay, that's a good guy, good game,
Yeah.
And that's what I want, for my life. That's how I saw myself, maybe that day I was dressed really nice, and people can remember like, oh, that guy that was, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool. He played a beautiful game, and that's the main thing is to jogo bonito,
Yeah.
And if you can do that, it like the title or the level sometimes, like, you put people together. Like Mr. Hene talks about, the day today your capoeirista may arrive, maybe not. So you could have someone that's been playing 6 months, 7 months, and you've been playing 18 years. But for whatever the chemistry is going on, the bateria, the energy in the room, the ashe, this and that, it may be very hard for someone to tell who is who.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing, sometimes. Like Tai Chi was that way as well. Like, we learned like, like a belt was, belts hold your pants, but your character will speak volumes, you know, and may give you the title without the years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it just as far as like an energetic level.
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
you know?
And I mean, it's something that we all face, like, you know, going through our years of like fitness and physical prowess. I mean, eventually you get to the time when, you know, you're not playing like you're 25 years old anymore.
Oh no.
You know what I mean?
You get up and those knees are popping.
Yeah, and so then it's also you know, I kind of like learned a long time ago that that the physicality isn't necessarily like what drives the dissemination of knowledge, as far as like my teacher has to be better than I am physically. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, then you get like some new kids coming up, and it's like you're getting older, and it's like, you know, in trying to sometimes, if I see sometimes for like some younger masteries, trying to keep some students like in check, they do it more of in a physical manner than like a traditional, even like a philosophical way, and that's a whole nother level of like earning the title of like Contra Mastery, and like now figuring out, wow, man, I'm responsible for a group of people.
Yeah.
Versus
Definitely.
like just like it's a collaborative effort, or I'm a part of this like group, is like switching roles to being a leader, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And I went through many of those same feelings when my mastery graduated, myself and now Contra Mestre Mechido, the Contra Mestre, was like, I never started capoeira because one day I aspired to be a mastery or a Contra Mestre. Was just like, that's just kind of what happened.
Right.
Based on the efforts that I was willing to put into it without any expectation. I never had an expectation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
It was always just kind of like for the love of it. And so that's kind of like, that's an interesting thing that I don't know that everybody will have the opportunity to actually feel. You know,
yeah.
because I've seen so many great capoeiristas kind of come and go and even drop off after they get like their blue corda or they graduate or something like that. And it's like, you always wonder, well, I mean, you know, how much did you really love the art? If you're looking at it as almost like, man, I just want to progress and get these cordas. And then it's like, because at one point, I guess, like, at least in Capoeira Regional, traditionally, like, you work your ass off to get up to like a graduate level, which is usually like the graduado is like a blue corda. Okay. And then you sit there for a while. It's several years. It's not like then corda just come. And you advance by showing your mastery, like your initiative, and like just doing it for the love of what you're doing and things like that. And so, you know, like I was saying, I've seen a lot of our students kind of come and go. And I just wonder if, like, I couldn't foresee myself if something happened and to me physically, I broke my leg or something like that, and I had to take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of capoeira off and then come back. I don't think I would ever say that I stopped just doing capoeira. I'll always be a capoeirista. It's always there. Anytime there's a roda, I'm always there. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
For me, when I wasn't able to train regularly, say I was when I was attending university or was injured, it was still going on in my head. I would still think about esquivas from certain attacks, and it's just developing in my brain like that. So even if I'm not actively involved, I'm actively involved in here. Mm-hmm. And also, as far as you were talking about titles in Angola, if I remember correctly, from a historical perspective, in Mestre Baixinha's academy, Mestre Gel Grande, he was kind of taught by Mestre, by now, Mestre Gel Pequeno. Mestre Gel Pequeno was, I believe, the trainer of Mestre Baixinha, and he would kind of teach new students how to jinga, the very fundamentals of things, just to kind of introduce them, if I remember correctly. So as far as like titles and stuff like that, I think it could be traced back from particular lineages, just, you know, a good while. Mm-hmm. So at least, 50, 60 years, I would say. I think Mr. Gel Grande and has been training for about 60 years. Yeah. So
something like that.
Yeah,
about that time. Of course, every school is different and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Have you guys gotten a chance to go to New York and experience Master João Grande's rodas?
I was there. I bought this shirt actually for his birthday. Awesome. I went to his birthday, his 85th birthday, And it was amazing. It was really wonderful. I remember, and when I was there sitting on the bateria, I was like, I'm sitting on Mr. Shogun's bateria. This is awesome.
Yeah, man.
And I remember sitting there, and it reminded me of the time that I first heard him play or met him. It was about 12 years ago. And there was a roda in Austin. There was a workshop in Austin. And he was on the bateria. He was on pandero at the time. And I was just sitting in the roda, and suddenly I hear just this sound, this real distinct sound over everything, over the whole entire bateria, over all the corridos and all that. And then I realized what it was. It was Mr. João Grande. He was playing pandero, and it was so distinct. And then I remember at that time when I was there, just in January, I was like, oh, I have flashbacks of when I saw him, and it was amazing for me just to be there and to see everything, and to know the history and a lot of where my teachings come through and stuff like that. And it was a wonderful experience. So if you're a capoeirista, I would really recommend just going there and just taking a class if you can, or even rodinhas on Mondays.
Yeah.
I was there Sunday for his birthday event, and then I stuck around for Monday for the rodinha, and it was really enjoyable because he was fine tuning every little thing that he wanted to see you do, and so he's basically a practice roda essentially. So it was a great experience. But I got this shirt there, so yeah. And I had to get this because it was this was, from what I remember, I was told it was the first shirt that they'd produced for the school.
Oh, cool.
So and they had ran out long ago, but then they just reissued it just for a short run. So
okay.
I had to get it.
Yeah. Have you had the chance to go and check him out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely one of the mestres that I train with as much as I can. Like if I'm going to go to New York, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And my sister lives in Newark, so I make excuses to go. But like you get a family, you stop going less. The early 2000s, I would go as frequently as I could. Yeah. And
it's wild to think that and I've talked to other capoeiristas outside of Capoeira Angola and Regional, and I've talked to other masters about this, and it blows my mind that someone like Mestre João Grande, who is not only like words are hard to find, but like an incredible mastery ambassador of the art, is like a living legend, is here in the United States, and doesn't have just an enormous following. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Man.
That blows my mind. That's crazy. That there aren't like 400 or 500 people
just attending his
thing, and it's
the responsibility of capoeira, for one, is a big one. And then depending on it's a big one, period. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone, especially like as far as I see as far as Capoeira Angola. Capoeira Angola, even in Bahia, is small. Like, do you see the groups compared to like Regional or Contemporâneo? You see some mestres, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
In class, like regularly, 40, 30, 50, 60 people.
Yeah.
I had in Angola is like, no, 12, you're good. You got a bateria, you're good. And it's good to go. And now, with him being in New York and with him being who he is, people come in from all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as like core members, you look at those numbers, it's kind of it's small.
It's tiny.
Yeah. That's another interesting thing. So one thing with so Capoeira Regional in general, and looking at the like looking at it in contrast for something like karate, right? Mm-hmm. Karate here in the U.S. is enormous, or jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Tons. Schools have a couple hundred members, Then you go to something like capoeira, and like you're saying, it's hard to get, it's like a niche market. It's weird, and I have a couple theories of like why that is, but there are some masters who do have like a couple hundred students, but in general, most groups, capoeira regional groups, consist of somewhere between 15 and 30 people at any given time.
At any given time, yeah.
You know what I mean? And and then you go back down, and then you go to something, like Capoeira Angola, that I feel like is even more of a niche market than Capoeira Regional, because I think a lot of people relate more to the Capoeira Regional from the martial aspect of like the stand-ups and kicks and things like that, whereas Capoeira Angola has so much it's more predominant, like the folkloric and like the rituals and the traditions and things like that, that some people either like clicks with them and they really feel it, or they just don't, and they're kind of like, well, what am I doing and why am I doing this? Right. I want to do Pilates, or I want to do something that's like gonna make me sweat. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. Like our group here in Austin, I don't think we've ever had at one time more than 60 people, 60, 70 people in the group. And that was when we were like, we were like booming. But at any given time, it's usually between 20 and 40 something,
Yeah, my the group I started with in Atlanta was like that. There were somewhere in the neighborhood of that, 20 to 30, 35 people.
Yeah.
And, because, where we were right by the universities, so it had that, I guess it had that closeness to the university where there was able to keep those kind of numbers and people interested in, learning themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what Capoeira Angola, I feel like it offered my group that, a chance to come in, put your hands on the floor, and then you realize like you're putting your hands on the floor because this is Congolese cosmology, right? This is an African science. And then like, we start learning, okay, the fight of capoeira, is it this physically outward thing or is it an internal thing? And then that's when you start, you can't, I feel like you can't overlook the corridos. The corridos are telling you the essence of capoeira. And they're all telling you, oh, your heart, coração, the berimbau, what you get, a panha-aranha. Just even that concept of a panha-aranha, picking up ancestral knowledge is how we see the symbolism, right? So you pick up this knowledge that is known to human history, right? And so we're asking for that in capoeira to overcome adversity. Right. And so you're having this interplay of movement, prayer, meditation, whatever however you want to you guise it. But the fundamental principles of putting your hands on the ground, all of that is coming from Congolese cosmology. So you put your hands on the ground to do this. It doesn't have anything to do with quote unquote the martial art. Right. This is a symbolism. You're representing the ancestors coming under the Kalunga. Yeah. In Aruande, so that can be a lot of heavy for some people, especially because you're really expecting like, okay, I really want to get a sweat, and you might come to class and it's oral lessons that night. Yeah. What are you gonna say, Mestre? I really no. Yeah. Right. I didn't want to hear all this mumbo jumbo. I just wanted to get a sweat and get a workout, and so it filters those people away, and then you're able to have like a core group of people who, see those principles, they uphold those principles, and you work on yourself the whole way,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something I feel like, every group struggles with, and you do need people to pay the bills. So it's not going to be 100% the people are like straight committed to the whole ideology of the art. Some are just there for like the physicality part of it. And it's funny because like as a teacher, you have to learn how to, you need to learn how to pass that art to people who are also, I don't want to say not interested, but who kind of like dip out of the way of like the fundamentals and stuff. Because like I said, you also need to keep the academy open, and it's a fine line.
Yeah, capoeira waits. Yeah, capoeira waits, and you have to allow for certain people to to grasp. But if they don't show up, or like we talk about in our group, hey, if you don't come, there's no capoeira, and so that kept us coming. Kept us coming together. So whether we have 1, it's like the movie Field of Dreams, sometimes you come in and you'll have some, like a newer student or something, and they'll ask, especially if it's really close to time for class to start, and they're like, should we put everything out? It's like, oh no, yes. If you build it, they come, So even if it's one person or two, even if it's, for something like a holiday season.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to class. This class falls on Christmas. Well, I'll be there, and if it's just me, I've still got to put out the bench, put out all the instruments, do everything, string up all the bows, and you train capoeira as if you have a group there, because that's what we're invoking. We're invoking this ancestral knowledge. We're invoking, the inspiration to, arrive in style. Mestre Moraes would always talk about arriving in style, and hey, you fall, make it look good.
Yeah.
And so, that's what it is for me, like that.
Were you going to say something?
So you'd mentioned, kind of the whole talk of Capoeira Angola numbers and stuff like that. It's kind of low. Oftentimes, and I'm sure your viewers, if they're watching this, they have some kind of interest in capoeira. That capoeira is a conversation. It's a dialogue, right? So I think with Angola, it's or capoeira in general, it's a language itself, because the people who are initiated within capoeira, they've trained, they understand this language. People who don't, they don't know what's really going on. But with Capoeira Angola, I think since the movements, the language, the vocabulary is less accessible and less easily understood, because it's such a foreign thing that people don't understand it. So it's kind of like, oh, I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to keep moving along. Yeah. Because there's the martial art aspect within it, but there's also the whole, just the playfulness of it. So it a lot of times I think people want to pigeonhole things in particular niches and stuff like that, little boxes. But you have, and within capoeira in itself, you have all these things. You have acrobatics, you have kicks, you have defenses, and going back to Angola, you have chamada. I mean, people say that, I thought this was a martial art. I say, how is this a martial art? This is chamada. How can you use this? Kind of like flipping off a bus. How are we going to use this? Mm-hmm. So, I think that's just something to also consider, is because it's a strange concept to understand when you're not initiated within it.
Yeah, or just even like culturally unaware.
It's culturally, exactly, like you were saying with the hands on the ground and stuff like that. I mean, people don't want to put their hands on the ground. Yeah. They don't want to get dirty. For me, it feels comfortable because it balances me. If I do the whole, fingertip thing, it doesn't feel comfortable because I'm not balanced. Right. I'm not connected to the earth, and I'm having to stress and push off the floor with my fingers. So there's just all these things that build up to add to it.
It's funny because no matter like how long I practice capoeira, I always come back to the question, and I had one right after the visitor we had at the last roda. You came to our last roda on a Thursday night, and he's like, I don't want to ask you this and you take offense to it. And I was like, don't worry, I've heard it all. Ask me whatever you want. I'm sure it's coming from a good place. And he's like, but I thought it was supposed to be a martial art, and it looks choreographed, and I don't really get it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, man, it's different. At any given time, you could whoop somebody in the face, or you could punch somebody in the face, or you could do whatever you want. But there's repercussions, and there's kind of like reasons why people don't do that. And there's like a lot of unspoken like rules or intangibles, and you don't get it until you don't comprehend it until you're immersed in it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there are sometimes people ask me those questions, and I don't know. It's hard for me to even explain to someone who's outside the realm of that, of like, well, why didn't I kick the guy in the face? Why didn't I get kicked in the face? Why didn't I, because it's like, expect anything from anybody at all times.
That's right.
Right. And there's nobody there who's going to say like, I mean, I don't want to say nobody, but I mean, it's not to say you can't do that. Well, you can just be prepared for the reaction. It's kind of like,
but you can't.
Yeah, you kind of can, but you can't.
There's natural consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like we were kind of talking about like society, and like where people are. For parents, I'll say this, for parents, that's something that you get to experience. You get to see someone, if you really stop and think about it, you get to see a person learn a whole culture within about 2 years. They start to learn to speak. They learn to walk. Stick a key in a door as soon as they get high enough.
Yeah.
Because they've been seeing it over and over and over and over again. And so the same thing with capoeira is, or with anything really. I mean, but in capoeira in general, like you need to be there and you need to be observant. You need to be more than just here. You need to be present.
Yeah.
And so those little subtleties will start to open on you. And if you don't, then that kind of puts you in a certain phase of where you are in capoeira. Like we have, you're in the dark, then you come in the light, then you're in the flow, and then you have that crystal ball. Mm-hmm. You're able to predict.
Yeah.
And so with those levels and that philosophy of capoeira, you have to be able to see where a person will be and just change those concepts for people. Like we talk about that kind of stuff all the time. You have to change your concept. We live in a world that says we need capoeira because the construct is to control and to conform your life. And this is what the fight of capoeira was.
Yeah.
People when they go through the history of capoeira and they think about slaves, first of all, misnomers, liberating themselves from plantations. Well, when you look at the history of Rio de Janeiro, you look at people and you think, well, wait a minute, this person goes to work. They went to a job. They weren't in a cotton plantation or a sugarcane plantation. They actually went and they worked at a place, and the person their master got a check from them working at a particular place, whether it be in a shipping yard, a bakery, a tailor shop, any of that, whatever whatever your skill set was. Well, that's kind of like what we do. All your money's spoken for. It's just that you've been given the idea that you have choices, and so you choose from the choices that you have. Mm-hmm. So and in capoeira, I feel like Capoeira Angola helped us to see inside some of those things, we start digging in, like my Mestre said, for my first trip to Brazil, and looking at the history of capoeira, where do you look? Oh, we'll look in the police station. So you go and you look at police records. We went to the library. We saw Pastinha's book and some other mestres, and, we were, really trying to seek it out. And so, and from the police stations, you can see the dossiers. Oh, this person, and then you can see the grouping of people. Oh, this person is from this part. This person's from Angola. Mm-hmm. This person's from Congo. This person, is this and that. And then how to even distinguish a person who did capoeira. Mm. Oh, there's a certain level of confidence because the construct was to dehumanize you, right? That's how you keep someone enslaved, is you dehumanize them. So if capoeira teaches you how to become a human, right? It's the whole process of being human, and being observant and going and doing what you need to do to pass through this phase. Yeah. And we get that question. Why didn't you just kick him in the face? Yeah. Or I would just do this. And it's like, but haven't you noticed that like this person is really comfortable upside down? Yeah. This person is really comfortable down low. You rush them this way, then that's what they want. Yeah. It may be what you want. You lead by following sometimes. Yeah.
I think a lot of the points that you just kind of touched on right now, I don't even know how much people that practice capoeira now are conscious enough to really like
think about.
Yeah, look at more of like the external versus internal factors and how capoeira can play a role in like your mainstream life. Mm-hmm, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even from like the fundamental and philosophical kind of views. It's, and I for myself, I didn't get into that kind of construct way of thinking until I was like older, right? And I started capoeira like very young. And so the stuff that capoeira started shaping for me when I was younger were things that I wasn't even prepared to like perceive, but they were happening. Right. You know what I mean? I mean, stuff like discipline and respecting my elders and like learning why traditions are important and, things like that. Oh, absolutely. Stuff that like perhaps my mom, not that she couldn't or didn't, but just things that didn't come up in the household environment that came up with my mentors inside of capoeira, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that you mentioned, I just want to kind of backtrack real quick because I thought this was interesting. You're saying like, regardless of if students would show up when you're teaching class, you still take the bench out, you still string up the beating balls, you do this kind of stuff. One thing for me was like just the joy of taking care of the studio, whether people were there or not. For me, it was like amazing, and I never looked at it like, damn, dude, I got to go in and mop the floor. No, when we got our very first like kind of permanent location here in Austin, we built a beautiful floor and we painted an amazing roda with Mestre and our logo on it and everything. I came early to class every day that I taught or didn't teach, and I swept and mopped the floor just because it was like, it's like when you get a new car and you're like, man, you want to just like, and I enjoy doing that stuff. You know what I mean? And a lot of our students, it's like we pass that on to some of our graduated students. And so I can see some of the instructors do that. But then the lower gordas, it's like they don't catch on unless you tell them to. And then when you tell them to, it becomes a chore.
Right.
And then it's like, why do I got to tell people to take the trash out? Like people don't do it because they enjoy taking care of like the space, you know?
Well, everything comes in a box for us.
Yeah.
Everything comes in a box. We can get it. We don't have to worry. It's in a box. It's already there. You stream in, you shop in. Oh, sorry. You know, stuff falling out of your bag. You rush in the back. You get, you change. And then you come out. You get that physical exertion that you wanted. And then you go home.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for. You pay your dues to have everything ready for you, to be waited on hand and foot. And it's like, no, actually, you still gotta upkeep. You buy a new car, you're gonna put gas in it. You're gonna the light comes on. You can't just ride it and say, well, I bought this thing, it should work forever.
Yeah.
You have to take care of your things, and you see that, the same way, like people, there was a older woman in the gym I was working out, and she says, and she looked very good for her age, and we were just talking, and she was like, some people, they want that Mercedes Benz or they want that Rolls Royce. And she's like, what do you think they're going to do with it? Look how they take care of themselves. You come with your Rolls Royce. You may not take a bath enough. You may not brush your teeth enough. You don't eat the right food. So you're going to get this thing that you desired. And what are you going to do? You're going to junk it out. It's going to have burger wrappers in the back seat. The first 2 weeks you washing it, or however long you're washing it every day. You're looking at it. You go outside. But then after a while, once it becomes familiar, you're on to the next. I want a new thing, Yeah. And so,
It was funny because like that kind of responsibility for me, my master never told me to do that stuff. And when I was doing capoeira, it was at a community center when I was very, very young. I was, 11, 12 years old. And the only way for me to practice was if I got dropped off after school. My school ended, I think, at like 2:15 or something like that. And class didn't start till 6:30 or 7. So I sat there for 3, 4, 5 hours before class started, 2-3 times a week. And I just sat there by myself,
At the gates of Shaolin.
Yeah, I was sitting there. Well, so after only a few months of, my master would show up and realize that I'd been sitting there. He gave me the key to the locker where we kept tapes. Those were the tapes we played during class. We didn't have CDs and another tapes. Yeah. We had a couple panderos and we had like this cassette box of like, tapes. And he was like, okay, since you're the first one here, every class, I want the music set up and playing, and I want the panderos over here. And then that's what I did, dude. And I started doing that when I was like 11, 12 years old. And then like those kind of like initiatives just started becoming like innate, and I wasn't had to be told to do this or that.
Man, that's really beautiful.
And it was almost like, it was like a lesson my master taught. It was like do without doing or teach without teaching. And he did a lot of that kind of stuff, And then going back to the bateria, man, I remember getting our, like, back in the day, it was so hard to come by beating bells.
Oh, yeah.
That if you dropped a cabasa and broke it, it was like a cardinal sin. you know? And it was almost like you didn't want to let anybody touch the instruments. It's like, nope, I'll do that.
I remember getting in my car one time, and I had my cabasa hanging off my backpack. I get in the car.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah, man. I get in the car, and I sit back. Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know? Tears.
Yeah.
Tears.
Yeah.
Just looking like, oh, man, now I have this Frankenstein gourd.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And even, you know, even things like that happen, you start to learn stuff like, well, okay, I got to glue the cabasa back together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from that necessity is what sort of like kickstarted me and probably yourself too into like, well, I could probably make a beating bow.
Let me tell you.
Let me hear a little bit about that.
Let me tell you this, okay? And all you mestres out there, understand this. Osakre Rikonja.
Uh-oh.
From the GCAP CD made a bitter bow. Or it was either from that or just seeing it. Mestre Jean Grangi was on Sesame Street as well.
Oh, yeah.
A long time ago.
Wow, I bet a lot of people do not know that.
You can find that on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. And so it was either that or the Smithsonian Institute CD for GCAP that we had. He made a bit and bow. The only problem was it had a peg at the bottom and had a peg at the top, right? A loop. And so you bow it by, you could twist the ring.
Yep.
And then you bow it and you put the ring on top. And slide the cabasa on.
I got you.
Why can't it be used in the roda? If you hear the bit and bow played, you don't know. It's until you see and you're like, no. So like, again, like, you know, not having anyone to give you that guidance, you do what's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's really bloody close.
Yeah.
You know, it was really close. I mean, he still has that bit and bow, and we're like, man, it sure is a whole lot easier than
Yeah. You know? Like
it's a whole lot easier than rapping.
Try stringing your first beating bow for the very first
Yeah.
time.
Do it. I was shaking. Like
You get
this.
so excited to get a beating bow and you can't even string the damn thing.
Or you get something and then you put the cabasa on and it goes.
Yeah.
You know, it's not tight enough. You know, it's not a sound. But yeah, man, like that like to him doing that and us singing that, and that's what we had to do. You know, I was saying, we were talking about like there was no internet. I mean, like there was the internet. I mean, you know, it was, 95 for us.
There sure wasn't a lot of capoeira.
There wasn't a lot of capoeira on the internet at all. You know, and so you know, that's where you start building that love and that dedication. That shows you like we wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we went and made T-shirts. We didn't have an affiliation with anyone. Mm-hmm. You know, we went, well, you know, they made T-shirts. We got T-shirts like, okay,
we need a uniform.
We need a uniform. That's what these guys have on uniform.
Cohesion. Mm-hmm.
Cohesion. We saw that, you know, and then, like I said, the community center that we eventually became a part of, that's the whole message there as well. You know, I am because you are. We are because I am.
Yeah.
You know, we come here together, you know, and we disseminate this knowledge that we've collected over human experience. Mm-hmm. You know, but some of those things, like I feel like some instances of creativity, like maybe there would be a master that was like, you know what, you can use that bidimbao because it's a bidimbao. Like there's urukungu, there's so many different types of bidimbao on the planet, you know, and then it's like what we were told what makes a bidimbao is kashishi, vaqueta, dobrao, cabasa, you know. Whether you have leather on the top or you know on your verga, I mean, it's like you know, it works.
Yeah,
it everything is there. The elements are there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. Traditionally, I bet a lot of people did things out of necessity.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like going to steel belted radio for arame. You know.
Speaking of necessity, that reminds me. I remember Mr. Shokuranji said that to make the arame, they actually used goat intestine.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sinew.
They had to use what they had to use. And then as times changed, me thinking personally, as times change, goat intestines is just less available. So what comes next? Got to get the tire. Look at that.
I would say I can't see goat intestines being less available because you have to look at the context of the relationship between Ifa or candomblé in the process of Brazilian culture, and so those things, it's going to be around. The same way you get the skins for the drums and stuff like that because there are sacrifices being made.
So maybe just traditionally some things just got easier and
there was. I would love to know the first guy that was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this car tire.
Yeah.
That I would have never thought of that.
And I'm gonna use it on my birimbau because all the other birimbaus would have probably been made with sinew or some either cat or goat or some type of thing. Just like you see the Sirigoma from southern tip of India. They have the birimbau and almost the same way, but even from a far distance, I could see that the arame was human, not human, but biological material. Some biomaterial. I knew it came from an animal.
Yeah.
You could see from that far distance.
Yeah.
And they're changing the. They didn't have a dobrão, but they still had kashishi. They still have vaqueta. And everything, the birimbau looks the same, but they change the pitch with their thumb,
long thumbnail and
or something, and so you see that, and it's like, well, how, like these traditions being changed and gearing to fit what's relevant for today, but I bet that was probably, I don't know. But I can imagine it probably was pretty, you have to step out there and be like, you know what, well, I don't care what you guys say.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to do it. And then it just revolutionized all the birimbaus.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it now.
Well, and it was like, there came a time when we would very, very rarely have the opportunity to get birimbaus from Brazil. And then when we did, you always have that one dude who shows up in class who doesn't know any better, and he gets the birimbau off the wall. He's like, yeah, I'm going to string this thing up, and snaps it over his knee. And you're like, well, now what do we do?
Yeah.
And so from that, I had, one of my Master's very first students, a guy named Scott Baltusberger, he actually taught me how to go and choose the right type of native wood here in Texas to use, which we use like ligustrum. And then you also mentioned, what else?
Crepe myrtle.
Crepe myrtle. And taught me how to go and do the whole process of like how to cut it, how to choose it, what it's going to look like. You can even go and before you take the wood, you can tell if it's going to be a viola or a medio or a gunga or something like that, just based off of the thickness of the diameter of the wood and like how long it needs to dry and how to even make the cabasas and how to like soak them. So first you can scrub them and then cut them out and all that kind of stuff. And so then I went through this phase for like 10 or 12 years. I made birimbaus all the time. And I didn't make them to sell. I made them out of the necessity of like, that's what the group needed. And then I even remember going through like, okay, now how do I get gourds? Where do I go to find cabasas? What's a gourd? And I tried to explain and people were like, dude, I don't know what that even is. And then I started discovering like there's farms in Smithville that have them and
Texas Gourd Society.
I don't even think I'd ever seen one in its like natural state. The first time I had like grabbed one, I was like, "Whoa, wow. This is what it like looks like."
Especially when it's hanging on a vine.
Yeah,
it looks something out of a movie.
and then I started developing the habit of like whenever we would every year for the batidado or several in a row, I would make a bateria just for the event, and that's what I would do, and it would be like a brand new bateria.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that it's like we're talking about, where does tradition, where does it get like muddled and how much does it really make a difference in terms of like what is like a legitimate like birimbau, because there's a lot of people who would say, well, it's not biriba.
Right.
And I only want biriba. Well, I'll tell you this. I've made some birimbaus from Texas native wood that sound way better than birimbaus that I've played that are biriba, made in Bahia and this kind of stuff. So it's like, I don't know to what degree, but like out of necessity, I did that. And I love the ones that I make. You know?
For sure. I mean, just the whole process of you putting ashe.
Yeah.
Going
out and doing that kind of stuff. And it's like, But then you ask anybody, and even people who are very new in capoeira, and they're like, no, what's it made out of? Oh, it's not biriba, but they don't know that there's also like a million other different kinds of woods aside from biriba that they use in Brazil to make birimbaus too.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, the wood here, people are like, oh, no, I prefer the one over there, you know? And there's a guy, his name is... What is his name? I'll have to look it up. But he runs an e-commerce website for capoeira stuff out of Hungary.
Okay.
And it's bateriando.com. So check it out. And I've had talked with him on the phone just discussing like birimbaus and how he gets his cabasas. And he, you know, because I'm doing the same thing from Brazil, and he gets some of his cabasas from Africa. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, he started learning how to use a native wood from Hungary. And he's like, it's way lighter. It sounds way better than most biriba, but for some reason people don't want to buy it. Even though it's a better quality instrument, people want, you know, what they think is more traditional.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, and it's like I'm on the side of like, man, I want what sounds good and what feels good to play. And I understand the tradition, but it's like just like I say they is like, you know, the Brazilian culture found biriba as like their native wood to do that. Why have it here too? And I value it just as much as that.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
It's all contextual. I feel like it would have to be contextual. I mean, like you can only uphold something that you can uphold. You know, uphold that which holds you up. So if you know, it's the birimbau that holds you up. You know, the materials that it's made with. Yeah, you know, if you're into that, but some people aren't even into it that far. Where it's like, okay, you've got your birimbau and you're looking at your birimbau, and I mean, like some of the traditions, like you can look at like the individual aspects of the birimbau, and some people say, oh, you can link that with an orisha. Well, that may not be anything that you're interested in. So what would it matter that it was made out of ligustrum or if it's made out of biriba? Because it being made out of biriba doesn't have any spiritual significance for you. It doesn't have any cultural significance for you.
Yeah, for you as an individual in relation to that,
and in relation to upholding that.
Yeah.
You know, like why? You know, and then it's like, so you learn to uphold that tradition. You say, okay, well, beribe pau. You know,
just a piece of wood.
Yeah, beribe pau.
Yeah.
You know, so you start to do that. But yeah, man, like we didn't have. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We had to make birimbau. You have to make what is necessity for you.
Yeah.
And then like even being in just different places, and you see different kinds of wood, and you see the wood that people used to use for clotheslines. You know, and that was kind of how I got to ligustrum and stuff like that. Is like you start, I said, well, okay, well, how does the biriba grow? Where is it? Where does it grow? What does it look like? And so you start seeing it, you're like, oh, okay, oh, it has veins. It goes up this way, and veins in the shape, and you start to figure out, oh, okay, so not necessarily oak because it's a little too hard and it's not pliable, but then not necessarily like something like pine or some other kind of stuff because it's too weak, you know, and you might have a birimbau for a week, and then it's like, oh, you got a bow and arrow now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's finding those things out, and then you start looking, and you're like, oh, well, this is in the same family, and once you get that part, it's like, oh, well, yeah, a rose is a rose is a rose, even though there's like, many variations. How many mangoes are there? There's hundreds of mangoes. How many apples are there? Hundreds of apples. But when you see one, oh, that's an apple. And yeah.
And then just kind of like getting into the musical aspect of capoeira, is that something that you really enjoy as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I would say my experience that the music and the musicality probably was the first thing that I felt like we got respect for, our group in particular. The music, our Mestre push the music. You won't, you may not have the movements, but you have the music.
The music is a non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable. And I feel
you
like...
might not be able to do a backflip, But the music is non-negotiable.
You might be able to make a person do a backflip. You know, and that's the thing. That's the thing with the music that's so powerful that, you know, I feel like the bond that we were able to create, you know, with our bateria, with the group, was the fact that, you know, you start, you know, we can communicate, man, telepathically, you know, boom, 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 boom. And we know, like, you see somebody, like, you're doing something, a demonstration for the International Festival in Houston. You know, it's massive. Or you're outside the Houston Public Library and you have something going on. One of our members, he is a longtime member of Food Not Bombs. So, you know, they feed the homeless outside, and, you know, ask us to come out sometimes. We, you know, play music or whatever. And you can see when the music gets a hold of someone, and we kind of just, like, either whether we look at each other or we communicate some kind of way with each other, and then we lean into that person, and they have this release, they have this energy exchange, and then, like, they don't know what it is. They've never seen it before, and they have that release, and they go on. And I like to think that made their day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Definitely from the way that they looked, it made their day.
Yeah,
you know. And so, like, that's what you do with the energy. If the bateria is no good, you know, our master would tell us, pedu birembao. Come back to the, you know, come back to the bateria, and, you know, either end your game or, you know, say, hey, pandero's off, or, you know, something, you know, so that, because it's your time, and the music can help or the music can hurt you, you know. Something happens on the bateria, you shouldn't, maybe, but you, pow, you know, you look away, and then that Habajahaya comes, you know. Mea lua de compassa is wow, oh man, because something happened with the music, you know, and that for me is very important, you know. Yeah.
It's interesting that you point out right now the like the disturbance that can cause on inside the roda when something's going on in the bateria, and with the music, and something that I've come to, like, really start like learning more about and watching firsthand is traditions that go on within Mestre Jalon's bateria. And I've been learning that a lot from Contra Mestre Esquilo, who we're, you know, grateful to have here in Austin as well. And a few of their traditions in the bateria, it goes like this, like, in order to change out an instrument, it can only be done when the two capoeiristas are back at the Pedu Birimbau, or they are in transition of buying a game. And usually if you want to change out the Birimbau, you call them back, you change the Birimbau, then they start to play. And the same thing goes with the song. They don't change the song while someone's playing.
That's right.
And you may sing the same song for 10 minutes.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people are like, but it's like, you get almost into like a mantra type thing, and, like, don't break that rhythm. Let it keep going, and let it keep going, and let it keep going. And then it's like, and then there's a specific time when you have the opportunity to change the song. It's like when someone's buying in the game, you call the people back. And then from an outside perspective, it looks like it's just people playing music and singing, and it's kind of like chaotic. But there's such a methodical and traditional way that everything works, that in order to conduct the roda, sometimes is very difficult. If you want to conduct it traditionally, how it should be done according to your lineage or respectfully, right?
Right.
It becomes like a job. It's not just, it's fun and I get to play the beating ball. It's like, dude, do you know the responsibility you're taking on now?
Well, you can't have your eyes closed.
Yeah.
You know, and just feeling, and you don't know what's.
You need to look and know and make sure that this guy is able to keep up with the rhythm that you're playing. And if you speed up and it's outside of the rhythm that they're able to play, you need to bring it back down. And you watch and you listen to, you know, make sure that the atabaki isn't playing over the sound of the gunga, and that you can hear the viola, the hipiki of the viola. That the agogo is being held, like, in the hand, so it's not like bing, bing, bing. It's like a ding, ding, you know?
Right.
And there's so many things. And then then you get into singing while you're doing all that.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, that is the thing. Like with Angola, most academies, that's standard. You know, you don't change. while you don't just get up and grab an instrument when two jogadores are there. You know, if anything, if you're, you know, you might signal to the gunga, you know, or hey, somebody's, you know, needs to be relieved,
right?
And that the gunga will bring the two jogadores back, and then you can switch those instruments out. You know, and another thing is like, don't try to switch out 5 instruments at the same time.
Oh yeah,
you know that. Oof.
Didn't work.
No, and it will definitely get you some dirty looks.
Yeah.
You know, the Mestre is like, you know, what are you guys doing? You know, but I can see that. But that's at least from our perspective, that's like
a norm.
That's standard. Yeah. That's like standard behavior. Like you learn that, and then that's the other thing. Like with people, and we were kind of talking about like. You know, especially in this modern age, you know, people taking pictures and you know, this is what they do. I do. Well, you can expose yourself as that kind of person. Like, especially if you're trying to put on airs and you go somewhere that you're not familiar with. Well, you may embarrass your Mestre, but more importantly, you will embarrass yourself. Because you're putting on airs that you don't have, and then you go and you do some of these things that are counterintuitive to what, and especially if where you're visiting, they know you're Mestre or Treinal or Professor, and they see some of the other people that come out of that academy. Yeah. Well, then they know what kind of student you are. You know, you by what you do, you tell them yourself. Yeah. You know, and that's the whole thing. What I like about capoeira, it puts that responsibility back on you. And you know, you can come with as much malicia as you want, but people are going to see what it is that you do, your practice. You know, your manjinga. You know, and the difference between manjinga, malicia, you know, and how you carry yourself like that. For me, will let me know. Like someone comes in and like, oh yeah, I trained with so and so, and then you're looking at them, you're like, no, you don't. Sometimes you do. Yeah, you show up sometimes, but like if you like train with that person, then you wouldn't.
You'll become a reflection of the character, right?
Yeah. Look, look at your uniform. Hey, your shoes are tied. You know, your shoes are untied. You know, like any of these little things, like you don't know where the things, you know, are to go on the bateria or something like that. And they can, you know, a person will know, like, they can get a gist of what type of student you are. You know, like you show up late, you go every 6 months, you know, you've only really trained once or twice. Yeah. You know, you caught a workshop or something, but then you go somewhere else and you're like, oh yeah, I trained with so-and-so and so-and-so. And then they're like, Yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah. You know? He's been there a few times.
He's been there a few times. I've seen him, you know, and you know, it's like just be honest with that aspect so that you can learn, so you can be open and receptive, you know. Yeah. You know, I go to many workshops and stuff like that, and you know, I see people taking pictures, and it's fun, you know. But like after you've been to so many and you've been around, it's like, I don't need another picture with you. You know, like I love you. You're my man. I don't take a picture everywhere I go. Yeah. But I'm just that kind of traveler. You know, I've had the experience of being.
Well, it's almost like people do it because they need some kind of
validation,
like outside validation. It's like, you know. Yeah. I don't know. It's a funny thing. I haven't gotten too much into like the social media stuff for my own like personality as a whole. I rarely put anything up just on Facebook about myself. It's usually about like Capoeira Connection or sharing something like that. And if it's a picture of myself, it's usually that somebody else took of me with them that gets, put up, or I took with them. But it's usually like I'm not sharing myself because I just don't have interest in you guys knowing what I'm always doing or anybody.
Right.
You know? And I think sometimes that even takes the fun out of like seeing an old friend from 10 years ago. If you've been following their life for the past 10 years, and it's like there's no surprises.
Well, there could be. I mean, there'd be many surprises, but it's just the fact that you start to formulate what's being scripted. You know, it's because like the social media thing is more like a reality talk show. You know, it's scripted. Yeah. You know, I remember being in Hawaii, and there was this reality show that was being filmed, and who the show was for. I remember their child. They were going to have them do surfing, and their child wanted to give them a hug, and a producer or someone, a handler, came over and was like, "Wait, just don't do that. Wait till we can get it on film." You know, and then they had this whole thing. Like I saw, like they had this whole thing of like how they were going to do all this stuff. You know, it's like, wow, okay. So I was like, yeah, I mean, you know, a reality show is scripted, but you know, like a really hardcore degree it's scripted, you know,
right.
and you see that. And so the same way with the social media, you know, the person's showing you food, they're showing you, oh, you know, I'm doing this. I'm driving my car. This is the breakfast I had, funny. You know, and they may not actually really do that on the regular.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just what they want.
Is want
you to see.
Want you to see. You know, want you to believe.
It's like have you ever heard Bruce Lee's interview? He's only done maybe one or two that were
chopped up.
Yeah, recorded and chopped up. But there's one, it's like probably like 30 minutes and it's broken into sections. And I think in one of the part, he's like, they're asking about what it's like to be an actor. Oh. And he's like, is acting or is acting unacting? Right. And I was like, dude, like mind blown. Yeah, but that's funny. It's watching people develop like personalities. It's almost like their nickname or their capoeira nickname becomes like their super ego. Mm-hmm. You know, instead of like a collaboration with their current self. And I wanted to go back real quick talking about something we were talking about with like the bateria and like traditions and stuff like that. And I heard this from in an interview with Mestre Pekinese about playing the gunga. And he's like, they asked him in the end of the interview, like, what's one thing that you want to kind of like leave everybody with? And he said, just remember that the gunga commands the roda, but it doesn't mean that you're the mastery because you're playing it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that, you know, that we've tried to keep a very tight hold on traditionally with like our group as well. For example, we in-house in class, you can play whatever you want. You know, you don't have to be a mastery to play the gunga. We want somebody always on a birimbau that can keep up like a great rhythm for people to follow. But we want people to learn and fail and, you know, do that kind of stuff. But when you're on the gunga, you're not the one who's telling people when to play and this and that.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe the mastery can not even be on the bateria or the contra mastery. And when someone comes to buy the game, they should look, where's the contra mastery at? Not look up to the gunga, who's just somebody playing it. You know what I mean? And that's like one of those like ego checkers. You know, it's like something that you just need to learn.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like for Angola, you know, the gunga controls the roda. Yeah. But yeah, that still doesn't give you the you know, whatever it is to just be like, you. So, you know, kind of thing.
A funny story with this, and this is something that I kind of learned the hard way, was in, I think, early 2000s. It was the first time that I ever met Mestre Pinga Fogo, and it was in New York. And I went there for one of Mestre Andrezão's of Capoeira Angola, his batizado, and his Mestre Pekinese was there as well. Mestre Fran was there. It was one of the first or second times I'd met Mestre Fran. And it's a huge roda. There's a bunch of Mestres, contra Mestres, professors, instructors. There's a big mix of different groups, and you know, sometimes that breeds like a little tension in the roda. You know, like beef goes way back. Well, the bateria is sitting there, and it's like all like masteries and this and that. And Mestre Fran is playing the gunga, and he looks over at me and he's like, "Come get the gunga." And I was like looking around. I was like, "Is he looking at me?" And he's like me? And he's like, "Yeah, come get the gunga." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I was like instructor at the time. And I go up and like, you know, I'm playing the gunga and everything's fine, and like, you know, people know to like look at Mestre Pekinese and stuff. And so I'm playing the gunga and I'm just watching the bateria, make sure everything goes right. Well, a fight breaks out in the roda. Straight on fight. And I'm like, I just keep playing. And everyone's like, shut it down. And I was like, dude, I don't need, like, you know, I didn't know in that environment, like what my duty or responsibility was. And I'm just like, don't stink, don't, you know, and I'm going.
Yeah, I think it's above my pay grade.
Yeah, and then like, you know, the everything gets shut down. People are jumping in, breaking up the, you know, the situation.
Yeah.
And then Messi friend comes over and he's like, oh, I'll take that back.
Yeah.
Like, let me just, you know.
Yeah,
good.
so you both learned.
A for effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That lasted for about 15 minutes. You know?
Uh-huh.
So it was just like, you know, one of those things is like, it's like learn in the moment. And it's maybe not the way you wanted to learn that lesson. But, you know.
Well, I mean, like, seems like the stuff that I, you know, have read on Capoeira, less of that, I think, is happening today than in the, well, I don't know, with the academies. I would say, like, with the academy, like, you see, but like when you read about, you know, these great masters and you look at like their who they liked, who they loved, who they trained with, how they even got to train with that person. Was it really training? Because, you know, necessarily it wasn't, there weren't academies around, but there were always mestres around. And so you'd pick out someone that you enjoyed what they did in the roda, and you'd ask them, you know, can I train with you? And that person would be your mestre for however long, you know, and you would do that to fill in all your gaps.
Yeah.
You know, in capoeira, and, you know, same way, like, I feel like learning to dance, you know, the dance of capoeira, you learn to dance. Well, sometimes you just have to go to the nightclub, you know, to learn the new dances. Like, there's no video out, you know, and then it's less social. You know, you're not picking out the whole everything together. So I see, like, you know, that's a good thing in some ways, you know, to be able to pick and choose, you know, like who you like, and to train with that master, and to build a relationship with them, because that totally was my experience, you know, our experience, you know. You know, you go somewhere, you have a good, you know, you see that master, oh man, I had some good ashe, you talk to him, and then you build that relationship. So, like, going back to, like, earlier in the conversation, it was about, like, training capoeira. When you're out, you know, you're hurt, like you said, you were in school, and you just kept that. That's kind of the thing that I did. When I was driving a truck, man, I would call mestres all the time. You know, I'm calling New York, I'm going to speak to Mestre João Grande. I call Oakland, I'm speaking to Mestre Timba. I call New Orleans, I want to speak to Mestre Curtis. I call my master in Atlanta. And so I was able to forge these relationships with these people. So, you know, and you know, I'm talking capoeira and I'm driving a truck. And then so after a while, I became a person that they would call me sometimes. And I remember when that situation changed, when I started getting those phone calls, well, it was like, wait a minute, are you on your way to work? I'm starting to notice that you're calling me now at this time, you know, every single day, you know, or you know, so often, and so you kind of get that thing, and so, like, I became that person for, you know, just outside of my mestres or camaradas in the art, you know, for most of my friends, you know, like, oh, Marrio can talk because, hey, he's driving a truck, you know, he's up all hours, you know, strange kind of things. But for me, it was, like, beautiful. Like, I played capoeira in my mind a lot, you know. Yeah. And then, you know, some places I would pull over at a rest area and I would get up under my trailer and I would jinga and, you know, see what movements I could do under my trailer. And, you know, and kept it going. I had my berimbau in the back, so when I would bunk down for the night, I'd play berimbau. So I was, like, always active. Yeah. Just, and man, the synchronicity of coming to a city that I've never, you know, that I've maybe never been in, or one that I have been in, and I know that there's capoeira in that city. Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to go to class tonight. And so I did that too, you know? Yeah. And it becomes, or at least you start to slowly figure out that it's always been about the journey and what you're willing to do to get the knowledge that you need. That's right. You know what I mean? That's right. And some people seek it out and some don't, you know, and you can't fault them for it, but it does show, like, a different, I guess, like, sense of character. And we all kind of, like, have our own ways of, like, you know, like you were saying, well, or your friend who made the berimbau, it's like out of necessity, but you will do anything and everything. That's right. To, you know, even if you don't have something available for you right then. And
it's funny. I got a text message this morning from a friend of mine in Brazil in Florianopolis, and I didn't make this correlation until we sat down and I was kind of showing you some of the methods from these old magazines. But these are the Praticando Capoeira magazines, and these are all more than 10 years old. And these are magazines that I used to ask my Mestre to pick up, like in the Sao Paulo airport when he would go back and forth, like when I was a kid. And they're like, I don't know, 9 reais, and they have like, look, a free CD,
right?
Mestre Suassuna CD, yeah, and all these interviews, and I started looking in this one, and this one actually has a segment all about capoeira in Florianopolis, which is where I lived. Well, a couple of I don't know, maybe a month ago, I saw on Instagram in Angola Mestre Poppy. I hate to put like, he is Angola, he's a capoeira Mestre, Mestre Poppy, and he is accredited with kind of like one of the pioneers in the south of Brazil around like Florianopolis and stuff for really like just starting like a rooted capoeira environment, there. And like his work has been, followed by many and supported by many for a long, long time, since like the 70s, I want to say. He's been there cultivating a lot of stuff. And I saw on Instagram, he's releasing his first book. And so he's like, and I showed you the text that my friend sent me. And so I immediately got on my phone and I was like, look, man, they're gonna come out with this book. You can't buy it online. You have to go to his roda in downtown on Saturday and buy me 2 copies of the book. And he was like, really? And I was like, yes. So he went and he sent me a text message this morning. Hey, I got you the 2 copies of the book. And I was like, awesome. Then I open it up and it's like written from Mestre Poppy. He like wrote a thing for me. And then I started putting it together that before I even knew who this guy was, I was reading magazines about him here, for however many years ago.
Right.
I ended up in Florianopolis going to many of his rodas in downtown. And then full circle, now I got a book, hopefully coming from Brazil, written by him.
Right.
And it's incredible, man. And it's like, it's just like a reflection of like how far and long are you willing to travel to get answers that you want.
Oh, yeah.
And then you look back on it and you're like, wow. I didn't even, until I started pointing out to you I didn't even make all these like connections. And I was thinking about it right now. And I was trying to see, I was trying to look in here and see what year this was in. But there's so many great Mestres that were residing in and around Florianopolis in this issue. And it's like, man, before I even knew that I was going to be in this particular place for so long and have this history of capoeira become some of my history and culture as well as a capoeirista, it's like, and now I have this magazine. I was like, wow, that's some crazy foreshadowing.
It is, man. I mean, it really is. Like, I can't even count all the instances of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience. Just, over the years, you watch YouTube videos. And I've seen all these mestres, and I remember there was a videographer too, that I was a documentarian. And then when I go to Brazil a couple of years ago, I remember I went to Mr. René's event of Akami, and I'm looking around, I was like, I've seen him, I've seen her, I've seen all these mestres. I was like, oh wow, all these years of watching videos, and I'm here and they're right there in front of me. And I remember, and the roda of the event I was in, I'm hearing a very familiar song from Grupo Nzinga. And it's Encoskbi Sibola. Encoskbi Sibola. And I'm hearing that song. I was like, why does that sound familiar? Why does that voice sound familiar? And then I realized who it was. I was like, where it came from. I was like, oh, wow, it's Grupo Nzinga. And I've sweated so much. I've put so many hours to that song. And then I realized it was an epiphany. I was like, I'm here in Brazil. And she's singing for me, in a sense, And for me, it was like full circle, kind of like what you said there. Like, and it came to me. It was an amazing experience for me. I remember, be honest, I got teary-eyed because it was so emotionally overwhelming for me. And plus, for me, I respond to the music. That's the only reason. That's the only reason why I started really capoeira, because of the music. It interested me.
Yeah.
And then when I heard it, on videos years ago. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. The movements, I thought the movements were kind of cool. I was like, yeah, that looks cool. But the music really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And then when I finally get to a class, and I was like, oh wow, it's call and response. This is getting in me. And you know, and Contra Marrio, it was that a lot of times if I don't like the music, what in the bateria, if I don't like the energy of it, I'm just not gonna play because it doesn't respond. I just speak to me. So having that experience in Brazil where I'm seeing all these masters and then hearing the Mestre sing, I was like, oh, it was too much for me. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool, man. It's definitely something special. It's like I think everybody's got to make the journey.
The pilgrimage. It's a pilgrimage.
Yeah. At one time or another, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm also excited today for your birthday holiday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
This is gonna be really cool. And it was a great opportunity. This is the first time that I've also had the pleasure of meeting you as well, Contra Mestre Marrio. And so it was great. I really appreciate you guys, like kind of on a whim, us throwing it together.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so, you know, for those of you listening, we kind of had to rush up here, do the podcast, and we're about to cut it and
get
go.
back.
Yeah, get right back for the holiday that's going to start here in a little less than an hour. I'm sure we still need to eat a little bit of lunch. I'm hungry. I don't know about you guys, but we can find something to eat.
I'm gonna need food.
Yeah, I don't need you passing out.
Yeah. But before we kind of take off, how can we find you guys have a website, group up?
Yeah,
where we can.
Kalunga N'Golo
Okay.
is the name of our group. And we're the only Angola group in Houston.
Okay.
So you type in Capoeira Angola or Capoeira in Houston, we're gonna pop up.
Okay.
But on Facebook, it's Kalunga N'Golo.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where you find us. Again, Capoeira for me, it's about that community outreach and stuff. And so, we're volunteers of the year for 2003, 4, and maybe 5. I think the Houston Area Women's Center. Very active in our community, and the community center where we're at, Shape Community Center. For anybody who wants to look that up, and see and understand that without them knowing anything about capoeira, they help facilitate, me becoming a Contra Mestre by allowing us to do this art. And to introduce and bring people, Mestre Moraes, Mestre Timba, Mestre João Grande, bring these people to our academy. Danda da Hora from Ileaie, Georgie Alabe, to do workshop and stuff. Mestre Curtis Pierre, the Samba man from New Orleans, to bring all these people to our community and show them this art and to understand this is a toolkit of for you to heal yourself, So thank you for allowing me to have that platform to say that.
Absolutely.
And to give thanks and homage to those people.
Good, I appreciate it, and can't wait to have you guys on again. This has been a good one. I'm excited to go back and listen to it. Thanks again for everybody listening. We're excited to release. I think this is going to be our 6th episode.
Okay.
Going strong. A lot of positive feedback. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We're on iTunes, and then also capoeiraconnection.com. Cool.
Ciao.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Contra Mestre.